When people hear Troy, they picture a single war, Greek heroes, a wooden horse, and a city in flames. Archaeology gives us a fortified late Bronze Age city, and Hittite texts point to tension between powers linked with Troy and Mycenaean Greece. But Homer's famous war is not established history. The firmer mystery begins after Troy. Around 1200 BCE, Mycenaean palaces fell, Hittite imperial rule ended, and Ugarit's palace kingdom ended. Their courts traded and negotiated across the sea. The breakdown did not happen everywhere at once, yet across the eastern Mediterranean, wealthy states with ships, soldiers, workshops, and writing repeatedly failed to rebuild. That is a real question, not simply what destroyed these places, but why their palace systems could not recover. The answer is not one invader or one natural disaster. It lies in how the palaces worked, how much they depended on connection, and how repeated shocks narrowed their choices. A Mycenaean palace was more than a royal home. Its scribes used linear bead tablets to track land, workers, animals, cloth, offerings, and stores. Officials directed important parts of production, distribution, defense, and ritual. The palace did not control every field or market, but it coordinated people and supplies across a wide area. That made destruction dangerous far beyond the palace walls. Workers could lose rations. Craftspeople could lose materials and customers. Rulers could lose records, revenue, and authority. A fire could destroy a building. Only a deeper failure could stop the whole system from returning. Consider a bronze sword. Its copper and tin often arrived through long chains of mines, traders, ships, ports, craftspeople, and rulers. The sword looked solid and local, but it depended on distant people continuing to travel and exchange goods. Palace power rested on connection, and connection created points of failure. A ship wrecked at Uluburun around 1320 BCE shows the earlier network at full reach. Its cargo included copper, tin, glass, resin, ivory, food, and jewelry from many regions. The ship sank more than a century before the crisis. It shows the system that later rulers struggled to keep working. Now the collapse becomes easier to understand. The strongest explanation is a cascade. Several different shocks drained the same reserves, disrupted the same coordination, and left less capacity for repair. A palace might survive one bad harvest, raid, succession struggle, broken route, or earthquake. The danger came when the next shock arrived before recovery. Drought gives the clearest measured example. Tree rings and chemical signals in central Anatolian juniper wood record 3 consecutive years of severe dryness around 1198 to 1196 BCE, with about 3 years of dating uncertainty. That evidence comes from central Anatolia. It does not prove that the whole eastern Mediterranean suffered the same drought. Even so, repeated harvest failure near the Hittite heartland could have emptied stores and reduced what rulers collected. Less grain meant less support for workers and soldiers. Hungry communities were harder to organize, and leaders had fewer resources for defense, transport, or repairs. Drought alone proves no collapse, but it could push a strained system closer to failure. Here is an illustrative model, not a recorded chain from one place. A poor harvest cuts grain and palace revenue. Weaker revenue reduces food for workers and troops. Defense and road patrols weaken. Shipping becomes riskier, so less metal reaches workshops. Production then falls, cutting revenue again. The system starts feeding its own decline. An earthquake could add repair costs, but no single earthquake event explains the regional collapse. Human conflict could do more than burn a city. Raids, local wars, rebellions, and struggles over succession consumed food and fighters, broke agreements, blocked routes, and damaged the trust needed to coordinate recovery. Movement was part of that crisis, both as a result and a new pressure. People escaping hunger or violence could seek land, work, or safety elsewhere. Some may have joined raids or armies. Egyptian records show battles with several named groups, later bundled together under the modern label Sea Peoples. Those Egyptian monuments celebrate royal victory. They do not identify one united nation that swept away civilization. The group's identities, roots, and roles remain disputed. Raiders, mercenaries, migrants, settlers, and families may all belong somewhere in the picture. What matters here is the effect. More movement and conflict made coordination, supply, and repair harder. This is why the end was uneven. Ugarit was destroyed and did not return as the same palace kingdom. Hittite imperial rule ended, although communities continued in Anatolia. Mycenaean palaces fell on different dates, and by about 1190 BCE, their palace system was gone. One cascade model can explain a shared vulnerability without inventing one shared sequence. Collapse, then, does not mean every person, farm, craft, settlement, or trade route disappeared. People survived. Communities adapted. Exchange continued in some places. What vanished was a particular political order. The palace institutions that gathered goods, directed specialists, kept records, and organized defense. The buildings could burn quickly. The loss of that coordinating system made the change last. Writing gives us the clearest trace. Linear B existed to serve Mycenaean palace administration. When the scribes' offices vanished, the script vanished with them. No Greek writing is known for roughly 4 centuries, until Greek returned in a different alphabet. Language, craft, and memory continued, but the institution that carried this writing did not. Centuries later, the Iliad and Odyssey were written down after generations of oral retelling. They were not eyewitness reports. They mixed inherited memories with later material and transformed the vanished palace age into heroic poetry. That is why Troy is a doorway, not an explanation. The poems remember a powerful world more clearly than they explain its end. So what kept the palace systems from recovering? Not one battle, one drought, or one mysterious people. Repeated shocks drained reserves, broke coordination, and made each repair harder than the last. Eventually, the palace systems that made the world of Troy possible had too little capacity left to recover, and that is why their world disappeared. Hey, this is Adam from The Wider Why. We make clear, engaging videos about science, history, technology, and more. Like and subscribe to see the bigger story.